BetQL Network, wagertainment for every fan. Get sports betting tips from the best in the game. Available on the Odyssey app and our sister station 650 The Bet.
Sports Radio 610 presents Seth Payne and Sean Pendergast.
We coming to H time. Let's get the work in, man. Let's go.
Great day, great day. Oh, give me some juice, baby. Hey, what's happening, everybody? Happy Tuesday to all of you.
Yeah, hey, welcome back, Sean.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed our little experiment where you realized that the hex doesn't really work without you.
I know. I didn't want to say anything, Seth. I realize it's a collaborative effort where you and I both have to turn our keys at the same time. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I hexed the hell out of Adolis Garcia last night.
That worked out for you.
Well, at first, it kind of worked out for me, all right, personally, because Sean Bajani had wanted to go with Seager. And, first at bat, I'm like, crap, should have been Seager. That got evened out right quick.
Oh, yeah.
So as soon as Garcia started hitting like he was hitting in Game 6 all over again, and the hex just apparently didn't work yesterday.
Dude, let me ask you this. Okay, so it's good to be back, by the way. Good to see you, Seth. Good to see you, Ben, as well. The Astros lose last night 11-4. Season's over. Texas is on their way to the World Series. And they lost on Sunday night. What was the score Sunday night? 9-2. It was 9-2 when I stopped watching.
Yeah, 9-2.
9-2. Okay, so Texas, give Texas credit from this standpoint. The two times we thought the Astros had put a stake through their heart in 2023, back in early September, and then in Game 5 of this ALCS, they came back with a vengeance both times. So give them credit for that. Was it easier to lose last night the way the Astros lost, where you just kind of throw your hands up 2 innings in, and you're like, all right, well, this is everything that was wrong with this team this year coming back to roost in a 2-night period? Or would it have been easier if they actually, stood in and battled in either of these games?
I guess it's a really good question. It's probably I've been trying to do psychoanalysis on myself over the course of the last hour and a half or so, just trying to figure out what do I even feel about baseball? How do I feel about the Astros?
Life.
Multiple reports that Dusty Baker's going to retire, and that's a little bit like when you have a. I won't make the analogy. Sometimes you're waiting for something bad to happen, and it's almost better once it finally happens.
Yeah.
Okay, now we don't have to make a decision on this.
Right.
Now it doesn't have to be, the guy that won a World Series and it took you to multiple ALCSs is going to get fired or something.
Right.
So if Dusty retires, then I feel like we need to do something. This is how I feel about last night. It's very clear that the Rangers were the better team last night for the final 2 games of a 7-game series. They were the better team. Mm-hmm. And yet the Astros still have unfinished business in terms of what their pitching staff actually looks like. And they still have multiple all-stars on this roster. So it's not like it's the end of an era, but they do have to tweak some things and get it back on the road. They gotta swap out the engine or something. If this is a vehicle, it's not just a little simple tune-up that's going to do it. You need some major repair work, but you can be as good as new again.
It's by far the most interesting offseason we're heading into with this team during this run, to me, because we'll get to Dusty in the next segment. It looks like Dusty has managed his last game as an Astro. According to Chandler Rome, Dusty's talked to multiple people in his inner circle that 2023 would be his last year. We'll hear from Dusty on that at 6:20. But yeah, this team, this was a flawed team this year. Look, they went from 106 wins to 90 wins. They regressed by 16 wins this year. Yeah. So there was by their standards, Seth, there was a lot wrong with this team. And the unfortunate thing about these last 2 days, and in particular last night, last night was just a microcosm of everything that by the Astros standards were wrong with the Astros in 2023. Christian Javier, to say he didn't show up is the complete understatement. This was worse than anything that he'd done in the regular season, and he had an early hook too. Dusty was not going to give a long leash. This is not August 15th or something. This is Game 7 of the ALCS. So you had double personality Javier, the bad one, showing up. You're relying on JP France in a big situation in a Game 7. He gets shellacked. That's where the game really got out of hand, was when you brought JP France in. He couldn't get anybody out. And then this team with runners in scoring position, just especially at home, they were 7-22 in their last 29 home games.
Yeah, that's the the freakish thing about this team that had a losing record at home for the regular season, that's the thing you just have to 100% hope is some kind of fluke. I mean, these things do happen, and these flukes occur sometimes over the course of an entire season or two. But that would, if somehow that continues, I don't know. Then the baseball gods truly, indeed, have it in for us. The hard thing about last night was I felt like it was a microcosm of the season in a lot of ways, in that Dusty was both hamstrung by the state of his pitching staff, and yet also annoyingly, alarmingly, sometimes non-responsive or like all too patient in doing anything to rectify it. Just JP, it's Game 7. You've got nothing to lose by swapping guys in. If you end up with a position player in the 9th inning, then the disaster stays a disaster. This disaster is not going to get any better by trying to preserve the dignity or get some kind of inspirational JP France didn't completely poop the bed story. Like, just go ahead and get him the hell out of there.
Yeah, it was curious. Dusty casual till the very end. Okay, so who do you think takes the brunt of things today from Astro fans? Kyle, there is a longer list than we would like of candidates to take it today from Astro fans.
Okay, so Kyle Tucker's an interesting one. I think people have been frustrated with Kyle Tucker, obviously and understandably, and yet it's not like he's done anything that should turn people angry against him. I mean, the whole looming issue would be, okay, if he doesn't sign an extension, if he does push it to free agency, it doesn't feel like he's doing it with any kind of an attitude or anything. I think Kyle Tucker, a lot of the emotion directed at him is just simple old school, like, come on, Kyle, what the hell? So I don't think that ends up being that's not something that lingers on into the regular season, or into the off season all that long.
No, do you I'll throw Framber in here, too, because those are the two big ones when it came to, okay, do we want to lock these guys up long term? Where are you on that right now? Where are you on Kyle Tucker and Framber Valdez and these young guys? Like, does this postseason do anything to hit pause on? I
think Framber, it might. Yeah. At the end of the day, I think Framber hopefully is here on this team long term. But it's going to be with a reset in expectations by him, I'm guessing, if it's going to happen. Yeah, like if Framber or Kyle Tucker were counting their big paydays, they would still get big paydays if they went to free agency, but it's not going to be perhaps necessarily what they thought they would be.
Yeah.
And that's where, I mean, honestly, the pitching staff last year, when the Astros won with that pitching staff last year, maybe we didn't really genuinely appreciate how rare and special a season that was for the pitching staff. All of those guys that were so underestimated, or maybe even appropriately estimated going into the 2022 season, they might have all had their career highs or their career bests. Mm-hmm. You might never see another season like that out of Christian Javier because, for one, if teams just start realizing, all right, I'm looking at an optical illusion with this invisible. I'm just going to swing above the ball, and that's where it's going to be.
Seager says, I'm just going to swing up here and hit it 440 feet.
Yeah, I know, but you combine that with the circumstance last night, though, was also combined with the fact that umpire calls a really tight zone. So if you're not going to give Javier any liberty at the top of the zone, and so those batters can just kind of understand. And remember, I don't think this is like a skeleton key to unlock Javier. That's a really, really good hitting baseball team.
Sure, yeah.
In Minute Maid Park, too. So, you don't always get – you only play half your games in Minute Maid Park, Sean. Javier will be fine on the road.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Just start him on the road every time. Jeremy Pena. This might be this might be look. And the Astros, if you're just getting up, then you know already. They lost 11-4 last night. It goes to show you how lopsided these two games were, Seth. That you and I have dug into about 30 seconds worth of material in these actual games, and we're already on to all right, what's the offseason look like? Because there is nothing to break down from last night. Christian Javier gave up a home run to Corey Seager on the fourth pitch of the game, and it was never close after that. Anytime the Astros had a chance to get it close, they couldn't drive in runs. They would give up multiple runs the next inning. The Rangers are just a better baseball team than the Astros right now, and they have fewer holes in they don't have any holes in their lineup. That's the problem. The Astros were Swiss cheese by the end of this series. And the Jeremy Pena thing, Jeremy Pena might be one of the more underrated sort of fall from grace. Might be overstating it. He's still obviously a very good baseball player, defensively at least. But the Jeremy Pena, Seth, goes from ALCS and World Series MVP as a rookie to a guy who's getting pinch hit for John Singleton in Game 6.
Yeah,
that's a pretty wild tumble right there.
It's what do you do with a guy? You know what he is now, Sean? He's an old school shortstop. Back when it was like every team had some incredibly athletic dude who weighed like 175 pounds. Pena's the muscled up version. Would bat 220 and everybody was cool with it because that's your shortstop.
Yep.
He would smoke a cigarette in the dugout during every couple innings, and there you'd go. It's like that's what he's an old school shortstop.
Okay.
And that would be fine as long as you didn't have a decrepitly old catcher as well.
Right. I was going to say catcher is the new shortstop. Unfortunately, you've got a shortstop and a catcher that can't hit. Well, and Kyle Tucker wasn't able to hit, and Chaz was a little inconsistent. So that was the big difference for me last night, Seth, is as I'm watching the Rangers, I'm going, man, they make you work 1 through 9. Like Leody Taveras was their 9-hole hitter, and he was solid in this series. And with the Astros, it was like, all right, well, if it doesn't get done by the time Abreu is hitting or Brantley is hitting at 5, then it ain't getting done with this lineup. You know, like you just felt like offensively, it felt like you were playing 9 against 5 last night. The last 2 nights, really.
I mean, there's a little bit to be said if you step back and look at this, maybe with some time and perspective. Look, the Astros were a 90-win baseball team, which is obviously no slouch or anything, but not what we're used to. And just a combination of good play by some of your better players, like some nice surprise performances by others, but then playoff experience, I think, helped manage your way through to a Game 7 of the ALCS. Like another team, a similarly composed team that didn't have all that playoff experience, might have gotten rolled out of the playoffs pretty quickly. I think there was something to be said for just a certain presence or savoir-faire that allowed them to make it as far as they did. But it felt very much like they were running on fumes.
Yeah, it's it.
Yeah,
that's it. I was just going to say it's experience fumes they were running on. Absolutely, that's a good thought. All right, we're off and running on a Tuesday. Nick Caserio joins us at 7:30 on the show today. Texans GM. He's going to join us, so we'll talk a little Texans. They're back at it. Bye week is over. Carolina.
We got to get his genuine opinion on the Astros too.
That was my first question.
He's not going to thrash anybody. Here's my 7-point plan to fix the Astros.
No. But I've thought about this for a couple of days, and I know Nick's been watching these games. But you know the Astros on these tweets about making 7 straight ALCSs. There's only like 3 other teams in professional sports that have done what they've done, and the Patriots are one of them. He was in the building for that, so I think it's an appropriate thing to lead in with him on for sure. So we'll ask Nick Caserio about that at 7:30.
And we'll ask him if Bill Belichick's getting fired.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be very forthcoming about that. What are his sources? What are his sources saying up in New England? All right, off and running. Payne and Pendergast with you on a Tuesday. Dusty Baker. Chandler Rome has a piece in The Athletic that says Dusty Baker has been telling people this will be his last season. Dusty Baker was asked that question after the game last night. What did he have to say about his future? We'll have that for you next. But first, I want to tell you about Dr. Ben Salento, DBC. Texas.
EPI.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Sports Radio 610 presents Payne and Pendergast.
Payne and Pendergast with you on a Tuesday. Good to be with you. Astros lose last night. Season's over. Texas on their way to the World Series. They win last night 11-4. Game 7 tonight between the Diamondbacks and the Phillies. I've gone back and forth on that one, Seth. When the Astros looked like they might make it to the World Series, I'm like, you know what? It'd be nice to play the Diamondbacks. They just swept them at the end of the year. Now I'm like, all right, go Phillies. We need you to do our dirty work here. I can't live in a world where the Texas Rangers are World Series champs.
There is no, I don't think there's a single, well, there's probably one sicko out there who feels like, well, hey, and I know who he is, by the way. Hey, if the Astros are out of it, then, hey, a team from Texas can win it. No.
Well,
there's no room for that. We need Texas. We need Texas to get rolled in 4. That's what we need.
He's not the only one. We have another colleague here at Sports Radio 610. Before we get to Dusty, as long as we're bringing this up here.
Who is it? Show?
Close.
Clint?
You ready? You want to hear this tweet?
Yeah.
Okay. When my squad's eliminated, I fan by 2 lines of thinking. I pull for the team that knocked my squad out, or I pull for the team from Texas. Call me crazy, but I'm pulling for the Rangers 100% in the World Series. Who's with me?
I think it's silly as hell.
Yeah, I retweeted it. I retweeted it with 3 cricket emojis. That's who's with you, Clint.
Clint's out there streaking the quad all by himself, just running across.
We're going streaking with the Rangers. Don't matter who they play. Let's go, Chief. Clint, what are you doing, man? Root for the Rangers. Are you kidding me?
That boy, the whole the fact that Adolis Garcia was able to do what he was in Game 6 and 7. Like, I'd say, like, knowing with full hypocrisy that if you were on my team, I would think he was the baddest dude ever.
The best.
Just, it's, man. The whole thing, man, last night, too, when he pimped that, what should have been a double, and he stood there and he only made it to first base, I was like, yeah, take that. That's what you get. And then the very next pitch, he's still second. And got what he should have gotten. I thought, man, that's actually, I gotta recognize that. That's pretty baller, man.
Yeah.
Damn it. That's where I got really nervous about last night. As soon as he stole second, and I know it's Javier and he's easy to seal on, blah, 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 but it was pretty damn fast. It was like he skipped the frame on his way to second.
Yeah.
That's where I got super nervous at that point. I'm like, all right, man, this is I'm not usually this way, but I'm this way right this moment.
How late did you hang with this game? For real, how I made it to the 8th inning because I just wanted to see if anybody got plunked.
I didn't. I was just checking in and out and nodding off on the couch, and then Chas McCormick got hit in the inner thigh by a 104-mile-per-hour fastball. And I thought he should have quit baseball right then.
I'm
done until this guy retires. So I just presumably Aroldis Chapman will be
suspended for 2 games.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. By the way, a good thing we appealed the Abreu suspension for these last 2 games.
Thank God they pushed that off until 2024.
Good thing we're going to be without him for 2 regular season.
Tell you
games.
what, if it is honestly though, when a reliever especially gets suspended for 2 games, it do feel like, oh, all right. Oh no, the guy that we very possibly wouldn't have used anyway is not going to be available for 2 games. Don't take away the World Baseball Classic, too. God, no.
Yeah.
Please don't do that.
Oh, my God. Like, after last night, I'm like, can we go back and suspend him for this game? Can we rewind and just suspend him for these last 2 games?
Yeah, serve it. Yeah, serve it in arrears or something.
That's right.
That's right. Call it.
Time served.
Yeah, that's it.
Dusty Baker, according to Chandler Rome of The Athletic, because this will be the big question now going into the offseason. What happens with Dusty? Headline, Dusty Baker tells multiple people that 2023 is his final season as Astros manager. And this is what Chandler Rome and Brittany Giroli of The Athletic say. Dusty Baker has expressed to multiple people inside and outside of the Astros organization that 2023 will be his final season as manager. Sources briefed on the matter told The Athletic over the past week. Baker, who's managed this season on a 1-year deal, declined comment when asked by The Athletic if he had told people in the game that this was his last season. Here was Dusty last night when he was asked about this following the Astros Game 7 loss.
I don't know. I haven't had time to evaluate or think about my future because, I'm down the list as far as, like I'm not that kind of dude. I don't want to steal a spotlight or anything from these guys. You got to savor what we did. You got to think about how we can get better. And then I'll evaluate my situation in my life. And so, we'll see. I'll talk to my daughter. I got 2 grandsons, a year and a half. I've really sort of cheated them for my quest for another ring. I got 2 dogs, hunting dogs, a year old. They wouldn't even know me when I walk in the house, because I haven't been home since February the 10th.
Somebody think of the dogs, man.
Yeah, think of the dogs. Why do you? I think that Dusty, given that Chandler Rome says that multiple people have reported that he's going to retire, he might maybe be in that spot where he's given himself a little wiggle room where it's not 100% ironclad that he's going to. I'm sure he's at a stage in his life where he's learned, okay, I'm not going to make decisions, when I'm drunk. Listen, kids, never make an important life decision when you're drunk, ever, because you will be totally convinced you're doing the right thing in the moment. And then 6 hours later, you're doing some serious backpedaling. But the second would be just never make a serious life decision when you're either tired or stressed or whatever it is. A lot of times you blame everything for whatever. Like when you're tired and stressed, you feel like the biggest thing in your life is the thing that needs to go. So you learn, okay, you got to step away from that a little bit. So I'm guessing he's 99% sure he wants to retire, but he wants to make it with a little bit of perspective and some time to relax.
Yeah, well, and again, it's not. He's not doing it in the middle of a champagne celebration if he were to do it last night, obviously, but I think it's still one of those. I think the night of Game 7 is still one of those things like, okay, you got to let the steam off of the game a little bit here before you do anything big picture like
what you got to be sure that you do it sometime before the owner asks you to go to the owner's meeting. That's the equivalent of tricking a dog to go to the vet. It was like last year, it was like, hey, click here, come on, get in the jet. We'll go to the owner's meeting, okay? There you go. No, that's all. We're just going. Yeah, come on, James. It'll be fun. We just won a World Series.
Holding the tennis ball.
Yeah,
chasing the tennis ball into the private jet. So I think, to me, Seth, the big tell, other than Chandler's report, obviously, was just from that audio, like the last 20 seconds when you start listing off your young grandchildren and your 2 dogs that haven't seen you, like
his 24-year-old son, who's in the Nationals organization, and he's around the team a bit more this year. Like, yeah, he's got his grandkids. He's also got a 24-year-old son. Mm-hmm. And you got to factor that into the calculus when you're talking about Dusty at his age. He also is I think there's a chance that he could maybe do some of the things he did in his 40s differently this time around.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I thought it was cool in Chandler's story about this. Chandler and Brittany Giroli is the name of the other person. The 2 of them, they've got a really good, thorough story on this on The Athletic. The anecdotes at the end of it, Seth, I thought were really cool when it talked about his son Darren, who's, as you mentioned, with the Nationals organization. I mean, Astro fans know this. The Nationals and the Astros train at the same facility in West Palm Beach. So the two of them, Dusty and his son, have been roommates the last couple of years at spring training. Like they've lived together at spring training the last couple of years. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah.
That's so it'll be the biggest thing with Dusty, once we as fans have some distance on it, I think, is that obviously you won a World Series, and we could argue about whether they did it in spite of Dusty or because of Dusty or whatever. Like, this organization was in extreme turmoil and tumult when Dusty Baker was hired to be the manager. And I think what was meant to be probably, I'm guessing Crane thought it was going to be a short-term solution. It ended up just being the perfect solution in that moment when you're losing a GM, you're losing a manager, you have all these allegations against you. Like, you needed somebody that could just steady the rudder, and he very much did that.
Will that be the first thing that people think of when they think of Dusty Baker? I've thought about this a lot over the last couple of days because my feeling is that win or lose, this was going to be his last season, and it looks like that's going to be the case. It's like, okay, what are people going to think of? What are Astro fans going to think of when they think of Dusty Baker?
This is the strategy, Sean, that if everybody abides by this will actually work. As far as for those of you who don't enjoy everybody always bringing up asterisks and everything, like if you can't get to that place where you actually enjoy when people do that and it still bothers you, if you start painting Dusty Baker as the man who restored dignity to the organization or brought them back into like the fold, after a tough period or what have you, you can also kind of rewrite perception about the Astros. You beg the question. Basically, you don't even have a question about whether or not the Astros return to respectability in the eyes of others. It's no, you see, Dusty was the reason that they got back. And somebody else say, no, it was actually Yordan Alvarez. And but then people have already conceded the whole respectability part.
I see. The assumed close is on the return to respectability. The debate is over who actually restored it.
Yes.
Respectability.
Yes.
That's a good strategy, Seth.
Exactly what you do.
I like that.
So was it Dusty Baker? And I think it's very fair to, I saw Dan Patrick, I think, the other day make some comment about, he's talking to Joey Votto, and this might have been from this past offseason, but Dan Patrick said this most idiotic thing, which was, if the Astros were so good, how come they had to cheat? And I think, obviously, that's ignoring all the other teams in baseball trying to do whatever they were doing to the point where baseball had to issue a memo. But also just that, remember in 2017, the Astros had not won a World Series yet. They'd missed the playoffs the year before. Yep. It wasn't like the Astros. So I feel like sometimes people look at the Astros as just one blob of they were just awesome and they've always been that way, or at least they were that way from 2015 onward. Yeah. No, it was a dicey situation there. A.J. Hinch hadn't won a World Series yet, obviously. Altuve, I get so tired of people talking about Altuve's the leader of the team. How come he couldn't? Altuve wasn't the leader of the team at that point. He was a young, awesome dude who had leadership tendencies and qualities, but he was still very young, and there were older veterans like Carlos Beltran and Brian McCann and other guys who were brought specifically on because of their veteran leadership.
That's it. They literally brought in people to fill a leadership void on that team. No, you're right. That guys like Dan Patrick and others who've had that take, they act like the Astros started doing the garbage can thing in 2019 or 2020.
Right, after they had already been to a few World Series.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a really good point. I think, for me, Seth, with Dusty, I think I'm going to think of three things, and I prefer to think of them in this order because I want to think positively of Dusty. Number one, first and foremost, and I said this last year, the night they won the World Series, where we were doing that show at Little Woodrow's, right in the heat of downtown, and everybody's going crazy. My number one thing coming into that show is I was happy for Dusty Baker. Say what you will about his managerial style, his decision-making, his stubbornness in playing young players, whatever it is, he's a very likable guy, and he's been a very successful manager, and I think his career is one that I think deserved a punctuation on it like that last year. That'll be number one for me. Number two will be what you just said. He steadied the ship at a time where this thing could have gone sideways very, very easily on the Astros when they got punished for the sign stealing in early 2020. And number three will be the frustration of this past season mostly with the handling of Martin Maldonado, some of the handling of the young players, Yainer Diaz, Chas McCormick, some of the pitching decisions, some of those things, some of the things that you're forced to really make hard decisions on a 90-win team. that on a 106-win team you got a little latitude with. You know, you have some room to maneuver on a 106-win team that you don't with a 90-win team. Credit him for getting him back to the ALCS into Game 7. I'm ready for something new. I'll say that. I'm more excited than I am nervous about a new manager for this team, if that's what it comes to. So let's go. I think a new voice won't be the worst thing in the world for this team.
Yeah, I think and some people, as far as listeners go, every time I think of Dusty, I'm going to think of Maldonado and how bad he is batting. SMH.
That's fair.
This is the one thing I'm confused by. Let's see. We can talk about paint drying when they send him down the road, and that is current. Put the Astros talk into the offseason. Move on. No, I'm sorry. I forgot you're so amped up for this Bucks game on a Tuesday, the day after the Astros get rolled out of the ALCS in an unceremonious fashion. This is very current right now. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. Look, Baker Mayfield has a knee injury, and he rested on Monday, didn't practice. A lot of people think it's no big deal. It's just veteran rest. Baker Mayfield will not be coming to coach the Astros next year, most likely.
No.
Yeah.
Are you bringing up Baker Mayfield because the Texans play the Bucks in
yeah.
Okay, well, they play the Panthers first, so just...
Excuse me. Damn it, Sean.
Well, I don't want you looking past the 0-6
NFC
Panthers.
South dyslexia. Yeah, The story with the Panthers is that Thomas Brown is now going to be the offensive coordinator and he's going to be the play caller instead of Frank Reich.
This is perfect. One of the cuts we have for headlines is D'Amico on not looking past Carolina. I feel like
I'm looking all the hell past
I'm
Carolina.
going to pretend he's talking to you.
I'm looking right over the top of Bryce Young's tiny little head.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
That's true. That's a really good point. It's easy to look past the Panthers when their quarterback is 4 feet tall.
I'm looking at Baker Mayfield next to Bryce Young, and I'm like, is that Manute Bol's kid? What the?
Doesn't look a thing like
that quarterback is huge. That's not Baker Mayfield, is it? He's too tall.
They are playing some tiny quarterbacks over the next few games. Bryce, Baker, maybe Kyler comes back for Week 11. Russell Wilson in Week 13. Zach Wilson, Week 14. Oh, my God. Will Anderson's going to kill a man on the field.
Is Deshaun Watson's shoulder ever going to be healed?
I don't know. They're winning without him. P.J. Walker time. All right, Payne and Pendergast with you. Nick Caserio, speaking of the Texans, he joins us at 7:30 on the show today. So we'll talk to the Texans GM, get his thoughts on the team here at the bye week. We'll get his thoughts on the Stros as well. So Nick Caserio will join us at 7:30 on the show today. Up next, headlines. Astros lose. D'Amico Ryans with some updates on the team. And Monday Night Football last night, a really interesting outcome in Monday Night Football. Headline. little bit here. He wasn't. He was not good. It's jarring to see, man. There's a lot of guys. We'll talk about this at 7:00. A lot of guys on this team who have to do some soul searching this offseason. I don't know if Tucker's at the top of the list. He maybe just had a bad couple weeks. But especially in this pitching staff, man, there's a lot of guys that have big off seasons coming up for them.
The biggest thing, I mean, if you're going to look at the difference between this team and others, or look at the organization now compared to what it was a few years ago, one obviously is just the pipeline and exactly what you have coming up. So that puts a focus and scrutiny on your player development system. And, right now, I don't know how great people feel about Josh Miller and everybody else that's coaching pitching. After, we saw Brent Strom in combination with the analytics department work such magic for years, and last year get the absolute Brent Strom wasn't here last year, but they got the most out of some of these guys that just was way above expectations. So I think that's the biggest mistake I made was going into this season a little too cocky about the pitching, and without realizing that, man, the infrastructure is not there anymore. It's just you were running on the fumes of everything that had been, including the pipeline, the development system, all of that. But they're just not capable of working that same magic. Guys got broke and stayed broke. Instead of Javier reeled it back in for a little while and then let it back out, and then he reeled it back in for a little bit while, and then he pitched a third of an inning last night. Framber, likewise, it just never felt like you could just snap him back into form the way you did in 2022. So that's the part to me that just feels like there needs to be a major fix somehow.
Yeah, I'm surprised how little heat the coaching of the pitching staff has gotten between Miller and Murphy. They've gotten very little heat. And by the way, Brent Strom, still alive in the postseason. I mean, the Diamondbacks have a Game 7 tonight, so he's worked wonders there as well. To me, it says everything that you need to know about what this pitching staff was this season, that the baseball writers that cover the Astros vote for different team awards every year. Kyle Tucker was voted the MVP of the Astros, appropriately so. I think he was during the season. Framber Valdez was voted their best pitcher. And you go, really? This was not a great year for Framber. And then you sit back and think, you're like, okay, who else are you going to give it to on this staff? It's a staff that it was other than Verlander getting here in August and giving you some oomph to get you over the hump and get you into the postseason and win the division, actually, you're not going to give it to Verlander because he's only here for 2 months. Framber's actually the right choice, and he wasn't that great this year.
Right.
They didn't really have anybody that you could lean on and go, okay, good. This guy's pitching today. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And there was a lot that goes into it too. I mean, the Astros had been set up in the case of Framber especially to be, an awesome player with the shift. He's an extreme ground ball pitcher. They took the shift away. He's a guy who's been erratic mentally in the past. What do? You take away his ability to step off the mound and compose himself in sticky situations. And I think, a lot of that, and maybe just some regression to the mean or whatever else, just led to him not being the same guy that he was the year before.
Yep.
Christian Javier is another one too that I think it was just way too easy for us to extend that graft upwards and to be like, oh, okay, if he just does this for 220 innings, it'll be incredible. When I think last night was a good example of, look, that the Rangers are an excellent hitting baseball team. Mm-hmm. This is not every team in baseball that's going to do this to Christian Javier, but there is an element of the optical illusion of his fastball that teams can adjust to with constant exposure. And so there's some balance. It's got to be some balance between I don't know if it's fluctuating back and forth between starter when you need him, long relief when it's possible, but I just don't know if he also physiologically is cut out to be an everyday starter. He got dead arm midway through the season in his first year as a named full-time starter.
Yeah.
And maybe that more than anything was an indication, okay, he's got to be a little bit something less than this.
Yeah. It's pricey now, though. He got that contract. He paid him $13 million a year now. So we'll see what happens. We'll talk more Astros at the top of the hour. Nick Caserio joins us at 7:30 on the show. Speaking of the Texans, here was D'Amico Ryans yesterday, head coach of the Texans. They have the 0-6 Panthers this weekend. The Texans a 3.5-point favorite in Carolina this weekend. How do you keep from looking past a winless team, D'Amico?
For us, we understand every team, as you guys saw over all the games this weekend, right? Every team, any team can be beat. So we don't take anyone lightly. We know, we watch the film. So we know Carolina is a good team. We know what they can do. And so we don't take anyone lightly. We know we have to bring our best every week, and we expect the other team to bring their best each week. So we have to be on top of our A game.
It's new territory for the Texans, man. Road favorite.
Road favorite, first time since what, 2019?
2020.
Oh, 2020.
They were a road. Last time they were a road favorite, I looked it up yesterday. Week 14, 2020, against Chicago, and they lost 36-7.
36-7?
That was that Trubisky game in 2020. In Chicago, yeah.
I'm having a hard time even recalling that one.
Yeah. 2020.
There's a lot going on in 2020.
COVID year,
Sean.
yeah.
I don't know if you remember or not.
Yeah, I don't.
We were watching. We watched full contact scrimmages between teams in empty stadiums.
In empty stadiums,
sometimes with placards of people.
Yep.
Yeah,
D'Amico Ryans gave an update on where things are with two key guys on injured reserve, Derek Stingley Jr. and Juice Scruggs.
With Stingley, I think his recovery process is going. He's on schedule. It's on plan. He's doing well. Juice, same way. We'll see where he ends up over the next week or so.
Okay, so don't know what that plan
I don't
is
feel
for
good
Stingley.
about that.
Yeah, I don't either.
We'll see where he's. That sounds like the old, "Hey, Dad, do we have enough money to go to Disney World this year? Are we rich like Sean Pendergast yet?
We'll see.
Is my family going to Disney World or not? Let's talk about it in a couple weeks. I know that move, D'Amico. I'm a dad myself. I know exactly how to put something off.
Oh yeah, that's a go-to.
Where do babies come from?
That's a go-to.
Is Derek Stingley going to play? Anything? Just to use the same damn. Oh well, let's talk. It's complicated. Let's talk about this in a couple weeks.
That's right. Hey, speaking of teams losing that you would expect not to lose, especially two in a row, to Cleveland and Minnesota. D'Amico's former team, San Francisco. They lost last night on Monday Night Football to Minnesota, 22-17, the final score of that game. The more interesting story yesterday in the NFL, Seth, is Kevin Byard, the safety for the Titans, traded to the Eagles for a 5th and a 6th round pick in Terrell Edmonds. So, I mean, Byard he's an all-pro level safety when he's right, when he's at his best. They got him for 2 day 3 picks. The trade deadline's next Tuesday. Is this an indicator you think that Tennessee is going to be a big seller over the next 4 or 5 days?
I don't know if they're going to be a seller over the next couple days, other than if they feel like they want to develop their young core, whatever it might be. Tennessee has not made any clear indications as to what their strategy is at any point over the last couple years. They are in a self-imposed purgatory where I think they've been hesitant to hit the reset button. Some of that may have been because they were trying to get funding for their stadium. And when you rely on fans voting for spending taxpayers' dollars on a new stadium, you maybe don't want to also be reliving the 2013 Astros experience.
Right.
Imagine if the Astros had asked for taxpayer money in 2013.
Oh, God.
So, this might be a little bit of the soft reset that they're just going to ease their way into and make some other hard decisions in the offseason. They got 2 third-round picks, which I'm sure they'll use to draft substandard
2 day 3 picks. They got a 5th and a 6th.
Excuse me, what did I say?
You said 2 third-round picks.
Oh, God, yeah. No, well, 2 third-round picks would have made sense as the compensation for Byard. Byard is the latest all-pro dude to go up to Philadelphia. I don't know what Howie Roseman has, pictures of Vrabel stealing beer from a convenience store or something he was once accused of, or not. But it's like that's the pipeline.
Yep.
It's like something. You know what it is, Sean? This is like something out of Ozark. It's like they got some kind of secret. They're stashing opium in these players. They send them up to Philadelphia.
Yep. Mike Vrabel is Jason Bateman. That's what it is. All right. We head into the 7 o'clock hour. Nick Caserio, 7:30 on the show today. The Astros have some guys who are about to become free agents. What's our expectation? We'll rapid fire these. Do we expect any of these guys, a few of these guys, all of these guys, back with the Astros next season? That is next.
Sure is, Sean. It's dead next.
Zadok
Jewelers.
Yeah, there you go.
Zadok Jewelers is where I went to Zadok the other day when I was a coworker of mine had left and on a vacation, and he wasn't here to deliver a hex. So I went into Zadok Jewelers to try to calm my nerves a little bit by brandy.
HD2 Houston. Insider access. Exclusive content. Sports Radio 610. The Texans play here. An Odyssey station. Sports Radio 610 presents Payne and Pendergast.
Oh, man. I was in bed by the time the final out was recorded. I didn't see it. It was Kyle Tucker who made the final out. That's probably an appropriate ending to this series. Here was Dusty Baker last night following the game. I think saying something that I know I was thinking. Rangers are just the better baseball team in this series.
It's not easy to accept or say, but we got beat. We've been spoiled around here as far as just winning. And, heck, I've been here 4 years, and we've been to 2 World Series and 2 championship series. We have nothing to be ashamed of or nothing to hold our head down about. We're down, but we're not out. And every team damn near in baseball would trade, to have the last 4 years that we've had.
It's true, and not just 2 ALCSs, Game 7 of each of those. They made it to 2 Game 7s of the ALCS, 2 World Series, and they won a World Series with Dusty Baker. Say what you will about his decision-making sometimes. If you don't like it, some of you are cool with it, some of you aren't, whatever. That's a hell of a run, man, for 4 years.
Okay, the New England Patriots had kind of a pretty good run at the first part of this century. A lot of youngsters might not realize that. The Patriots were good for a long time, everybody. 2001 through 2018, really. It was our 2001 through 2018.
Yep.
But no, I'm joking about the youngsters not knowing that part. The part about the Patriots did go through a lull after their first stretch of championships that kind of felt like that might have been the end of their dynasty, because after their 3rd Super Bowl in 2008 they didn't win. They didn't go to the playoffs. Then they lost in the wild cards the next year, 2010. They lost the divisional playoffs. They were still a very good team. They just couldn't get over that hump. And people thought, that's the end of that's the end of the Patriots. And is Tom Brady really all that good? I know he won MVP, but is he really all that good anyway? And then they went on to win several more Super Bowls. So I saw John McClain's tweet last night, which was speaking about the Astros dynasty or run in the past tense. And I don't quite get that. I understand how it's tempting and reasonable to think that way, given some of the challenges that face this team. But yeah, I'm not going to be talking about this team like it's in the past tense.
No.
And it was good while it lasted. Now I'm just going to let the Rangers come in and sleep with my wife, which is apparently what a lot of you guys want to do. Oh yeah, take my wife, take my gold, take everything.
Yeah.
Take my sheep. I know you like those, you Dallas weirdos. Take my sheep and take everything. No. Don't let them take everything. What the hell are you talking about?
It's one postseason.
Yeah.
This is still
it's Game 7 in an ALCS.
Yeah. It was that. Now I agree with Dusty. They were the better team. Just the vibes.
Damn right, the Astros were the better team.
No, they were not, Seth. Not this time. They were playing 9 against 5, basically. Offensively.
I'm manifesting it, Sean.
Yeah.
I'm going to manifest a World Series championship.
There are 5 players on my list here that are going to be free agents. Let's just rapid fire these. You tell me if you think these guys are going to be back with the Astros next season. Michael Brantley.
Not back.
Yeah, I don't think so either. You can't, in good conscience, unless you're giving him a minimum deal, but I don't think Brantley would want to do that. I think Brantley's probably maybe ready to go play golf. I don't know.
Yeah, and I understand the thinking behind. I honestly maybe bring him back for the expanded roster ahead of the playoffs or something, which is basically what you did this year. Just say hey, we got $5 million waiting for you.
Yeah, man.
Just come on in and come play and we'll use you as needed. He's already shown that he's capable of having a good eye without having a bunch of regular season experience.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Definitely not back at 1 year, $12 million, I would say.
No.
Martin Maldonado. I don't think he's back.
He's gone.
I don't think he's back.
No, I'm trying to think of all the different reasons that he might come back, and it hurts me. I don't want to be ungrateful for everything that Maldonado has done, but I think it's just time. It's time. No matter what his experience is, and no matter how great he is calling games, et cetera, et cetera. You can say that about a whole lot of old retired catchers.
Yeah.
She comes for all of us at some point, and this will probably be it for Maldonado.
Yainer Diaz, if he got regular at-bats this year, is a 30 home run guy. You've got to – that's a game changer at that position. I think Martin is gone. The other 3, I think, collectively are interesting because this might be Dana Brown's first big project as GM, is remaking this bullpen. they brought back everybody from last year's bullpen. That's part of the reason they gave Montero an excessive deal. It was like, well, let's just bring everybody back, and we got the same bullpen. This bullpen that carried us to a World Series last year, and it turns out the bullpen wasn't as good this year as it was last year. But Philip Maton, Ryan Stanek, and Hector Neris has a player option, which I'm guessing he's going to say, nope, I'm going to be a free agent because he had a really good year this year. He should strike while the iron's hot. That's 3 key guys in the bullpen that they need to either sign or replace.
I think it's Maton. I don't know about Stanek. I might be done with my Stanek experiment. And like the feeling of always like, what's going on with Stanek anyway? You can't keep a guy around that you're constantly saying, what's going on with him anyway?
Right.
So Stanek's gone. Nearest might be too pricey given that you overpaid for a couple of guys last year who are currently on the roster. And so that leaves Maton, who realistically, boy, they probably let Maton walk, even though I'd prefer not to, but partly because he scares me. But I feel like he's going to, he's the kind of guy that he's going to keep receipts when he leaves. But Maton's the one guy that maybe just because of perceived value elsewhere versus what the Astros know about him, they might be able to retain.
Yeah, that's the problem. We learned it with Montero last year. I think one of the more coveted assets on the free agent market are going to be relievers who have come through, Houston here. That the price of poker got really high on Montero. It didn't turn out well this year, by and large, with Montero. But I think Stanek, I don't know. I don't know what the market's going to be for Stanek. He's been completely, he was completely excommunicated during the playoffs last year. They never used him. But he's been good at times. He throws hard, He
was awesome for one pitch. If you only need him for one pitch, Sean, then by God, put him in there, dadgummit.
Yeah. So that'll be a big project for Dana Brown. There's probably a remake of the bullpen that's going to need to take place, and who knows who's going to be coaching these guys? If Dusty's gone, do they kind of reimagine the staff, the coaching staff as well? All right, Payne and Pendergast with you on a Tuesday. Nick Caserio joins us at 7:30. Texans executive vice president and GM. We'll get his thoughts on the season 6 weeks in. And where the Texans are going from here. This is things looking up. 3-3, favored at Carolina this weekend. Game you can hear right here on Sports Radio 610. Noon kick. Seth and I have you for Texans Countdown starting at 9 a.m. D'Amico Ryans talked about Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud yesterday. What was it like evaluating both guys? And initial thoughts on the Carolina Panthers this weekend from the Texans head coach. That is
Lease from D&M.
Sports Radio 610 presents Payne and Pendergast.
All right, Texans-Panthers on Sunday. Panthers 0-6, Texans 3-3. Of course, this one, around the league, this will be a topic. That game will be a topic because of the two quarterbacks. Bryce Young, the number 1 overall pick. C.J. Stroud, the number 2 overall pick. Here's DeMeco Ryans yesterday on evaluating both guys leading up to the draft.
It was a good process going through the draft, evaluating both guys, Bryce, and C.J. Both guys that you've seen for both of them, they had a lot of experience. They played a lot of ball in college, and it was clear to me that both of those guys were the top 2 quarterbacks coming out in this draft, and they both, I think, done a really nice job. It's tough on rookie quarterbacks with what they're asked to do coming in. It's a lot on their plates, and I think both guys have handled it pretty well.
It's interesting that's the first thing he brought up, Seth, was the experience, because it's becoming harder and harder to find guys that have that level of experience, because guys are leaving after 3 years and maybe just 1 year as a starter, like Anthony Richardson. Well, he was just 1 year as a starter in Florida.
It is, for coaches, and I think modern coaches have adjusted to it by now, but it's been for a while now. If you look at a lot of the offensive players, for one, so many quarterbacks have barely been under center. So they get to the NFL, and maybe they have 1 year of starting experience or less, like Trey Lance. And not only are they learning how to, well, Trey Lance did play under center, but in general, some of them are learning how to play under center. They're learning how to actually be an actual quarterback, like how to run a huddle, like what to say, all those things, how to operate with the play clock and everything under more intense circumstances than they did in high school, and they just don't have that much experience doing it. So, yeah, I think for C.J. Stroud and the Texans, obviously, it looks a lot more like it this year. That experience helps you accelerate the process, and it's just fewer moving parts that haven't become automatic in the brain of the quarterback. And it's just and it used to be, oh yeah, he was a 4-year starter. Now it's like, oh wow, we got him for 2 years. Awesome, let's roll.
Bryce Young is going to be operating with a different play caller in this game. Frank Reich was calling plays the first 6 games. Panthers are 0-6. So they are going to be changing play callers. Thomas Brown, who interviewed for the Texans head coaching job last year, he was, I believe, he wasn't the offensive coordinator with the Rams.
He was the assistant head coach.
Yep.
And was a lot of people described him as just having whatever that undefinable it quality is. He's just got a certain way with players, and is an offensive-minded coach and has spent time on that side of the ball. So I think like with any of these guys that are coaching for the Rams or anywhere else, you never know exactly what their input is into a game plan or play calling or anything. But suffice it to say, he spent some time with Sean McVay.
Yeah, he did, and now he's getting a chance to call plays for the first time. His first opportunity will be against the Texans this Sunday. Here was DeMeco Ryans on the Panthers changing play callers.
With Thomas starting as the play caller, I'm happy for him to get the opportunity. He's been a fast riser in this league. Going against him with the Rams, he's done a really nice job there with the running backs, tight ends. And now for him to get the offensive coordinator and also the play caller gig, I think speaks to the type of coach that he is. And, how much respect those guys have for him. So I know Thomas would do a really nice job of putting those guys in position to make plays. And I know, as any coordinator, that's what you want to do. You want to put your players in position to make plays, and Thomas will do his best job to do that.
If the Panthers are going to ambush the Texans this weekend, Seth, it still sounds so weird for me to say that about the Texans, but if they're going to ambush them, is part of it, could it be this, that you have no clue about what Thomas Brown's tendencies are as a play caller?
Yeah, I think you'd have no clue except that DeMeco has played against and owned the Rams, so there's that, and B, I think just has familiarity with that scheme and system, but it's not like all of a sudden Thomas Brown's going to come in and install a completely different offense.
Yeah.
So that's the part, I guess the unknown factor of just how much is the play calling going to change, and what does DeMeco, do about that in advance of that. That's a huge question. I know one thing. When I was watching cut-ups and just kind of watching the 49ers defense over the past couple years with DeMeco as their quarterbacks or as their defensive coordinator, that poor Tyler Higbee, the tight end for the Rams,
dude,
he left the field limping at least once almost every single game. They beat the snot out of Tyler Higbee. And I feel like they might just be watching clips of that this week with the Texans. And I know, Jimmy Ward would be a big part of that. Like, oh, yeah, hey, this Hayden Hurst, yeah, dead man. Like, this is the target. We're going to destroy this dude. If they want to try to use Hayden Hurst as their little, or Tommy Tremble, or any of these tight ends as the little safety valve for Bryce Young, then just destroy his whole world.
Dude, you brought that up when the Texans hired D'Amico, the Higbee watch that you did. Like, they should name the kill zone after Tyler Higbee.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, I get so excited when I think about it. In D'Amico's defense, it's not a soft spot in the defense when they're in zone. It's a kill zone. It's an opportunity where, we're going to go ahead and let you. Here, go ahead and taste this nice little piece of carcass that we laid out for you. And then bam, bam, you run over. You don't even shoot him. You run over him with your safari truck. That's what you do to that lion out in the kill zone. So that's
then hit it in reverse and back over him again. Just to make
is he dead yet? Oh, he's way dead, but let's hit him again.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Just to make sure. Last one from D'Amico Ryans. Nick Caserio joins us at the bottom of the hour. Here's D'Amico Ryans on the Carolina defense.
Their defense is a really good unit. I think it starts up front with Brown and Burns. You want to play good defense, it starts up front. They have two good players up front, and they bring it every snap. Really talented players start, on the edge for sure with Burns. We have to make sure we have eyes on him and get him handled because he can wreck a game. So starts up front with those guys. In the back end, they play sound coverage. All right, guys fly around at the linebacker position. So it's a really good defense we're going against as well.
You know what we need? We need Brian Burns has been on the trade block for like the last 2 years. The Carolina Panthers very infamously rejected a huge offer from the Rams last year for Brian Burns. We need someone to trade for Brian Burns in the next few days. That would be good.
Somebody other than the Texans.
Just
the Texans, because I see people bring his name up. Various other pass rushers. I don't think, as was reported in The Athletic, the Texans seem to be standing pat with what they have and want to develop it. Who knows how much validity there is behind that. Like, you're reporting non-news, but I wouldn't, I do get that feel about this team right now. They're making progress, and I think they're happy to just work with this talent they have right now.
All right, Payne and Pendergast with you. Speaking of the Texans, their general manager, Nick Caserio, will join us in the next segment, get his thoughts on where the Texans are right now, what they're going to look like moving forward, and we'll get his thoughts on the Astros. Look, only a few teams have made as many consecutive Final Fours of their respective sports as the Astros have. The Patriots are one of them. He was in the building, so maybe get a compare and contrast from the Texans' EVP and GM, Nick Caserio, who joins us next.
Bayway Ram on 225 in Pasadena, your absolute best place to get a Ram pickup truck, the 3-time Motor Trend Truck of the Year, with so many ways for you to save, including 0%